wouldn't be a carbon bonded books video if we weren't doing math. Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I will be discussing all things TBR. So for those in the book community who are not chronically online, TBR stands for to be read. This is basically just the list of books you plan on reading. The analog version would be, back in the day when you used to just stack up books on your nightstand. Today there's all sorts of tools you can use for creating a TBR. Of course, there are websites like Goodreads and Storygraph where you can actually create a digital shelf of books that you eventually want to read. Those tend to get out of hand because there's unlimited storage. You can just put as many books on that list of I want to read as you want. Back when I was a kid, your TBR was books you had physically purchased or gotten on loan from the library. Maybe you had a list of titles written down somewhere of stuff you wanted to get to eventually, but in general, before I started watching BookTube, I had really never planned out my reading the way I do now. So I would usually have, like I said, a short stack on my nightstand or things I knew were coming out, but I was really never planning more than 3 books ahead. And now I have entire videos dedicated to what books I'm planning on reading for a season. And I don't know how many people actually do this, but I think there is a conception that a TBR is I'm reading this one first, then this one, then this one. And typically my TBRs are not set up that way unless it's for a specific reason, like a readathon or something. But I tend to pick out a chunk of books that I want to read for that season, and I can read them in any order. I can read books outside of that chunk if the mood strikes. Everybody thinks there's 2 camps. There's mood readers and there's TBR planners. I feel like it's more of a spectrum, and I kind of fall somewhere in the middle where I like to have a plan. Having a plan of what I'm reading next really helps motivate me to read the book I'm currently reading because I'm excited to move on to the next one. If I have no plan for what I'm reading next, I tend to slow down on my reading and how much time in my day I'm dedicating to reading because I don't know what's happening next, so I don't want to finish what I'm currently doing. So for me, having at least a 1 or 2 books out plan, dedicated plan, very helpful for me. And kind of knowing what's on the horizon of books I'm looking forward to, also very helpful to me. But having to directly follow a plan of read this book first, then this one out 10 or 12 books, not helpful. Not good for me. I like to be able to sweep in and read something interesting. So with that, like I said, I create seasonal TBRs. So I had one going from spring, so March to May, June to August, and then September to November. We are at the end of November. I am actually recording this on Thanksgiving Day, so there's really only 1 more week of November. So I thought it would be kind of fun to look at the TBRs I created and put some stats to it, because wouldn't be a carbon bonded books video if we weren't doing math. Kind of the plan here is to just put up my digital journal page of the TBR I created for that season and talk about, how many books were on it, how many did I complete, how many did I read, a completion rate, and then also how many did I complete in that season. So an on-time delivery number. Let's get started off with my spring TBR. This was the largest TBR I created. It is huge. It is a total of 16 books, which on average, I read 5 to 7 books a month. So this is really hitting the amount of books I can read in a month. But I did complete 100% of these books. I read all of them, but my on-time delivery was only 81.25%. And I can't remember which books I was late for, but there was a couple, I guess, that I was late for. And I guess something else kind of TBR related. You can see sometimes I split up my TBRs by book club, readathons, other things I want to read. Just, there's lots of reasons I want to read certain books, and I like to know why. My next TBR is my summer TBR. I had a total of 10 books on this one. I only completed 9 of them, so that's a 90% completion rate, but I read all 9 of those during the summer, so I had a 90% on-time delivery, which feels pretty good. Like, the fact that I am reading most of them, of the ones I read them when I was supposed to, so feeling pretty good about that one. And finally, my fall TBR, I'll put it up here. You can see it is mostly NetGalley arcs that we're archiving in the fall. Completion rate is not great on this one. I had a total of 11 books. You can kind of ignore that middle column of Squash That Series reads because I totally changed my plan for Squash That Series. So just ignore that middle column of Squash That Series. Plans were changed, and it happens. And you know, seeing as it is Thanksgiving today, and I really only have another week of November, I don't see myself really completing anything unless one of these NetGalley arcs that are still due is really, really short, because I'm still halfway through a book outside of this TBR that I need to read. We're gonna stick with the numbers that I have here. So there is a total of 11, I can't remember if I mentioned that, and my completion and on-time delivery are the same because it is still the fall, and that is at 54.4%, which is bad. I guess Spookopoly kind of messed me up in October because I created this TBR before Spookopoly was announced for October. So basically the whole month of October I wasn't really reading this TBR, which is rough for me personally. But yeah, for the most part, my TBRs seem to get completed, this last season notwithstanding. And so to finish up this video, I want to discuss kind of my TBR plans for the winter months. So December going into January and February of 2024, which is crazy. 2024 is insane. I'll be turning 30 in 2024. I'm not actually going to create a seasonal TBR for winter like I have been doing this past year. And there are a couple of reasons for that. December, I really just need to catch up on books I wanted to get to this year and just didn't for some reason. So December, we're just leaving wide open, and also leaving some time for something I'm going to discuss in a second, because January is the start of the biggest Squash That Series readathon round that Bailey and Kayla have ever put together. So I've talked about Squash That Series in the past. It is a readathon focused on reading series, book series, that is hosted by Is Bailey Reading and Kayla Ray Reads. It's always a ton of fun, and they are putting together an incredibly cool sounding readathon for the first 6 weeks of 2024. So January and like half of February. It will be an individual competitive style readathon. I will link Bailey's video so you can watch like the full breakdown of the rules, but I will just do a little bit of describing of the rules so I can discuss what I will be trying to read. So the first 2 days of January, there will be a qualifying round in which you need to read 500 pages and 6 hours. If you read really, really fast and you read 500 pages in like 5 hours, you will still need to read like an extra hour. And if you are a slow reader like me and you really only read like 60 pages an hour, I will still need to read an additional 140 pages outside of the initial 6 hours. So kind of the idea is as soon as you qualify, you do those two things, 500 pages, 6 hours, you submit something, probably respond on Discord. I don't really know. Should probably make sure about that before it actually starts. And you will be qualified. If you are in the first 36 people to qualify, you will be put on a bracket, and then you will be directly competing with your bracket person. I don't know how sports work. And then each round of the bracket will be a different past Squash That Series readathon. So there's been a bunch of different rounds of Squash That Series, each with their own unique style and rules. And so each round of the bracket will be, I think, like 6 days long, and will be following the rules of that specific Squash That Series round, and you will be competing with your bracket person. I'm babbling. Rules are hard for me to understand. That's why I was never that good at sports. So I'm gonna be doing my best. My entire goal for this readathon is just to qualify, just to get on the bracket. And then after the first round, there is a way for people who are not on the bracket to participate. So that'll be a good time. I will be continuing to participate throughout the full 6 weeks of this, whether or not I'm actually on the bracket. Like I said, my entire goal is just to qualify, and that is the one thing I can kind of plan for those first 2 days of January, because I know what the rules are. We're not going to be disclosing strategy in this video, but I will be disclosing some of the series I am currently reading and in the middle of, so I have options for this whole squash this series thing. So, series I am currently reading. I am obviously still in the middle of my Sigma Force reread. I have many of these that I could read in the months of January and February. Much to my dad's dismay, I am still only 3 books into the Pendergast series. I believe the next one I have is Life of Crows? No, what is the 4th one? I don't know. I'll put up the 4th one here. I might get to that. A million years ago, I read, what is that? Oh, American Royals, the series about if George Washington had been a king and if we had had a monarchy in the US and what their lives would be like today. Read the first one of that, really enjoyed it. Never finished it. Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mysteries, those I think I've all read those as audiobooks and really enjoyed them. I think there's another one out that I haven't read yet, like a 4th one? I think I've read 3 of them. There's a 4th one out. I haven't read it yet. Dark Olympus. This is another one. I started this series and then just never finished it, even as much as I enjoyed it. I think, what was that, my summer TBR? I had planned on trying to read some of those for Squash That series and then didn't. I don't know. Dark Olympus is a dark romance series focused on like Greek gods and Greek mythology figures. So you would think I'd be all over that. And I was. I really enjoyed the first one. I just, for some reason, never get around to picking up the rest of them. A cute little duology I have is Winter's Orbit. I don't know what the actual duology is called, but I read the first one, Winter's Orbit, really enjoyed it. The second one, Ocean's Echo, is out and available to read, so that could be, if I need to like finish a series, that could be a good one for that. The Grecian Women Trilogy. So I read the first one of these as an arc, but I don't quite know how it all worked out, because I'm pretty sure it's like a Kindle Unlimited thing, but is now being like expanded outside of Kindle, so they were like releasing it as an arc so that people knew about, I don't know, whatever. There's 2 more books than that I could read. I read Athena's Child. I wasn't obsessed with it, but it was like short and fun, and I got through it pretty quickly, so that could be a good option there. Bright Falls. This is a series of romance companion novels taking place in like Western Oregon in like a made-up town. I read the first one, Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Really enjoyed it. You know, fun, fluffy romance novels. Always a good option for a readathon like this. Bookshops and Bone Dust. So this is actually a prequel to Legends and Lattes, but this is one that would be, I mean, could it complete a series? I don't know. Rules are weird when it comes to prequels, but it is a part of a series, and if I just need something in a series that is fun and light, this is good. Spanish Love Deception. So I really enjoyed that book. I know a lot of people didn't, but I do have the second one, The American Roommate Experiment. I own it physically, so that is an easy one to just pick up and be ready to go right off the bat without having to wait for library holds. Three Sisters Island. So the first one of these, Dance Upon the Air, was a book club pick for Bailey's book club that I'm a part of. And I have mixed feelings on this, but apparently the next 2 books are like really, really short. And I enjoy Nora Roberts' writing enough to power through. And then finally, another series that I can actually remember I'm in the middle of is, I think it's called Part of Your World. Okay, yeah, so Part of Your World was the first book. Yours Truly is the second book. So I could also read that one. I don't think it'll complete a series, but it's just another light, fun, fluffy romance that I could jump into pretty easily. And then there are 3 series that I thought maybe I could start in December just so I have like a couple more options going for me. First one being the Trials of Apollo. I know for a fact I've read the first book. I read the first book when it came out, but I haven't kept up with this series at all, and it's something I would like to try to get caught back up in this Reardon-verse of like the Percy Jackson series and all of the spin-offs. So I would like to reread The Trials of Apollo, hopefully in December, maybe just an audiobook, and then be able to jump into the rest of that series. A series I've never read, but like really want to get into is the Earthsea cycle. I read The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin back in October. Really enjoyed her writing style, really have a lot of respect for her like as an author. So being able to pick up one of her more well-known fantasy series, and especially something that's more like young adult geared, is gonna be helpful for readathon. And then finally, this is a graphic novel series that I've wanted to read forever. Like, I've known about it for a long time and I've just never gotten around to it, and that is The Wicked and the Divine. It's kind of based in Greek mythology, but just more like loosely based in like those characters. It's kind of like Dark Olympus, where it's like not the same person inhabiting like these godly spheres. It's like something that's inherited down. So there's like the title of Zeus and Demeter and Persephone, and they're like handed down through generations. So that is something I definitely want to check out. I really want to get more into graphic novels, just like me as a person, so this is a good excuse to jump into a graphic novel series. So that is what I have going on for December and January and February. I cannot believe we are at the end of the year already. That is insanity. But I'm looking forward to 2024. There's big things coming. So, with that, let me know how many series you are in the middle of. Let me know if you're going to be participating in this gigantic round of Squash That series. And thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.